It's time.
And now, it's time for Herman and Sharron.
I love you. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Everyone that's watching right now, we appreciate you. You've ever wanted to be appreciated? Now's the time.
The word is appreciated.
We have a guy on that I never thought I would have because
He didn't want to be here with you?
No, I'm kind of in awe of the guy. First time, he is a unbelievable producer, director, you name it, he can do it. He can, anything on, he's even done Super Bowl commercials.
Wow, those are the best.
And many major Christian television programs. If you ever see one, which this is rare every once in a while, but you see one once in a while, okay? When you see one, you go, that is well done. That is the slickest thing I've ever seen. He probably had a hand in it. I mean, first time we met was many years ago. He was doing a seminar. And I had never heard anybody like him before, because I always thought, you know, you go to NRB and the rhetoric is basically the same. Okay, no matter what session you go in, it's basically the same. I walked into his session, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing things that I'm going, I thought that very thing. That is unbelievable. And I mean, I just connected with everything he was saying.
Well, you know what his name is?
Yes.
Phil Cooke.
Phil Cooke. And you're watching right now and you go, I've heard that name.
That's right. Internationally known filmmaker, media producer, and speaker and author. His books have changed the way nonprofit and religious organizations use media to tell their story.
And let me tell you.
He founded Cooke Pictures, which is a media production and branding company in Burbank, California. He's a California guy.
This is his latest book right there on the screen. He is absolutely a phenomenal writer.
Yes.
And we actually
He's
have him
bragging
physically.
on you today.
Yeah, he is. I'm
really
physically
bragging.
here.
I should hire this guy.
I know.
That's right.
Great promoter.
Hey, Rich, turn that monitor around there so Phil can. Phil is a producer's producer, okay? He even trains people how to do it, how to correctly do it.
Is he going to be producing this whole show while it's going on today?
No, I mean, he's going to.
That's an idea.
When he leaves this show, he's going to go, what the heck was that?
I don't think so.
What the heck was that? Phil, he's an internationally known writer, speaker, longtime media consultant, producer, filmmaker, author. He has produced media programming for in more than 40 countries.
Wow.
And you've been in some places that
Pretty rough places. Yeah.
It was a miracle.
It was
that
a miracle.
You made it through.
A complete miracle, absolutely.
Why would you take yourself there?
I'm an idiot. No, well, the problem is, you work for the Lord. You're going after ministries and nonprofit organizations that have medical missions and organizations like that, and you go to some pretty dark. There's some pretty dark places out there. So it's fun to go document what they're doing and tell their story.
Even Paula Zahn, when she was with CNN, said Phil is a rare working producer in Hollywood. You have a PhD in theology?
Yeah, I do.
So I should be saying Dr. Phil?
I'm the original Dr. Phil, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
Now,
yeah.
What prompted one big thing?
Well, you know, it's funny. I speak all over the world, and whenever I do a conference or an event...
And you do seminars.
I do seminars, workshops,
I love your workshops.
Well, that's how we met.
Remember boot camp?
I remember, absolutely. And whenever I speak, people come up to me and they'll say, you know, Phil, I have to say, I've worked my entire career, I've been in ministry my entire career, but I can't say if I've accomplished what God really put me on the earth to do. And so people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s will tell me that. And so I decided, you know what? We live in the most distracted culture in the history of the world. And it's easy to get diverted from what God's really put us here to do. So I wrote a book to help people figure out what that is.
So how did you find out that you're where God wants you to be, doing what God wants you to do?
Well, that's an interesting story. Because
your OBT.
My OBT, that's right. Yes. You read the book.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story because I've spent my career, 35 years, working with churches and nonprofit organizations, ministries, and I discovered something interesting in that process. And I discovered that the ones that get noticed, the ones that are most successful, are ones that aren't, they're not average at a lot of things. The ones that really get on the radar are organizations that are extraordinary at one big thing. They do one thing really, really well. Yeah. And so the thought occurred to me, I should start applying that to people, because we're all the same way. You know guys who are jack of all trades, but master of none. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're pretty good at this and
well,
pretty
they're the
good
guy
at
you say that guy can do anything.
Yes.
But you don't know what the
But they don't do any of them well.
Big thing is.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that because we live in well, look at it this way. Particularly if you have a message burning on your heart, if you have a dream, if you want to make a movie or write a book or launch a ministry or start a business, if you want to get noticed by people, you can't be average at a lot of things. To get noticed today, you've got to be extraordinary at one big thing. And that's a big part of driving the book, because think of the number of Christians are out there, probably many watching this program, who feel like God's called them to do something special. Yeah. But they don't know how to get noticed. How do I get that message heard?
How do you get away from, like, when I saw you the first time?
Yeah.
And the things you were saying caused me to be ignited, because I had never heard, you know how you have things going around in your head? Mm-hmm. You're up there saying those things, and I'm thinking the things that I had going around in my head shouldn't be there. Because of what I'm in and what I'm doing. This is foreign to what I'm doing.
Yes, it is.
And you were saying how to get outside of the box.
Yes. Yeah, we get caught up in a bubble very often.
Oh, boy.
Sometimes it's in church, sometimes it's in our company or our family. We just need to get out of that bubble, particularly Christians. I think Christians watch Christian movies, read Christian books, watch Christian television.
Christian speak?
Yes, and all those things are good.
Yeah.
However, Jesus never got stuck in that Christian bubble. He was always engaging people. He was always out there meeting fishermen and meeting tax collectors and going to parties like weddings.
Yeah.
And so I think Jesus was a master at getting out of the bubble and actually encountering the culture, because that's where we're going to make change.
This book is pressing and pushing you into what could you be the best in the world at doing.
Yes. I like to say, if I put a gun to your head and said there's only one thing you could do for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Wow.
What's that thing deep inside of you that you've always thought, well, I don't know, I'd love to do that, but I can't make enough money.
Honestly, reading your book, because my door was closed, and reading your book, when I saw that, I just laid the book down, and I'm staring up to see it, and I'm going, now what would that be?
Well, let me say this, Herman, it's not necessarily a job. It's not like your one big thing is to be a coach or be a secretary or be a teacher or an insurance salesman. Your one big thing is really more of an overarching thing in your life. What's the purpose God's put you on the earth to accomplish? And that can be expressed in a lot of different ways. My purpose is to help Christians engage the culture more effectively. I just believe the stakes are incredibly high. We have a life-changing story that could turn this world around, and yet we're not very good at getting that message heard. How can we do that more effectively?
You've worked with Joel Osteen?
I have.
I mean,
Joel's an old friend.
That is when I first saw that come on, and that stadium full, I watched him when he was, in the other church.
Right.
I even watched his dad.
Yes.
But when I watched that stadium full, I'm looking at the video as I'm watching, and I'm going, now who would have the ability to light that stadium so that when I'm looking, I'm actually seeing how large and how many people are in there? Because most people would shoot the stage.
Right, right.
And you would go, do you realize how many people are there? And I go, how many people are there? There's like, what does it hold?
Well, it's in Wrigley Field and, Dodger Stadium. He was there a couple years ago. There was 65,000 people.
What does this church hold?
Church is about 18,000, 19,000.
Okay.
And he's got 3 services.
But if you saw that stadium, you'd go, and you only shot the stage.
Yes.
You would go, oh, that's a big church?
Yeah,
oh, yes, it's huge. It's like 20,000. Really?
Yeah.
But they have figured out how to light. Now, that's what you see, right?
Right.
Out of your eye, when you walk into a place, you see something different than I would see.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, but that's because you've grown up being in the ministry. You're a preacher, a pastor, a teacher. You're the kind of guy that has that message to share. I'm the kind of guy that looks at it from behind the camera. So I'm thinking, how can you do that more effectively? What if we shot it this way? Or what if we had you do this or that? My goal is to get your message in front of as many people as possible. I mean, that's ultimately what, marketing kind of has a bad word in the church. But the truth is, marketing is about getting your message in front of as many people as possible.
I remember you saying in one of your seminars, you're going, now, folks, while the guy's preaching, it's okay to shoot behind him so that you see what he's seeing. And I thought, I mean, and I've often, before I heard you say that, I'm going, I used to sit there and go, they're just shooting the guy walking around the platform.
You know what? Shooting the audience. All right, if you're going to go there, Herman, shooting.
I mean, that stuff fascinates me.
Shooting the audience is so important because the guy sitting at home is looking at that pastor, and if he doesn't see the audience, he doesn't realize a lot of people come and hear this guy. Maybe I should be listening to him. If you don't show the audience who are engaged and excited and interested in making notes, that guy at home doesn't realize, wow, if those people are that in tune with this guy, maybe he has a message that I need to hear. So in many ways, the audience shots are just as important as the preacher shots when you see a Christian program. They're very, very important because they're the window for that man or woman at home to really see what's going on.
Your moment of revelation, when did that happen? Yours?
In college. I enrolled in college. I went to ORU, Oral Roberts University, as a music major. My dad was a preacher, and of course, to be a preacher's kid, you were required to play piano. Remember those days? And
did you ever want to be a preacher?
Never a shred of a moment's desire. Wow. And I don't know if it was because, and I love pastors and I love great preaching, it just was never my thing. And I think, but the flip side of that, because we live in this media-driven culture today, I can produce one television program that'll reach more people than my father reached during his entire lifetime. And so that's why I think media is absolutely critical for reaching this generation. It's absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Now, you've done commercials.
I have, many.
Okay. Do they build commercials because they know the audience out there are about as stupid as a bag of nails? Have you seen the one that plays all the time with the guy
commercials.
With the guy talking to a can with the string in the bottom of it?
Yes, the vegetable soup commercial.
And you see it. Oh, okay. Now, I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
Do they?
And men are always the stupid one.
Is that the target audience?
Well, you know what? I think the idea is you've got 30 seconds to get somebody's attention. And in 30 seconds, you've got a very short window. And so sometimes you do outrageous things just to plant that seed. And the truth is, you're talking about that commercial right now. You may have hated it, but we're talking about it.
That's right.
On national TV.
That's exactly right.
So it worked. So yeah, it is interesting. We try to focus on comedy commercials. I think comedy is a powerful way that Christians can use to engage the culture.
Did you do a Super Bowl?
We did a couple Super Bowl commercials, and it's always interesting to look at how people react to commercials. You know, at the Super Bowl, the commercials are the best part usually.
Oh, I know it. Oh, it is.
So
it's better than the game.
It's like the Academy Awards for commercials.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of fun.
You got to talk about this. The bread plate lady.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, listen to this, because this actually makes one big thing centerpiece.
Drives it home, doesn't it? Well, my wife and I were filming in Moldova in Eastern Europe, and we were doing a documentary about sex trafficking, which is a horrible. It's the number one industry, sadly, over there.
I've done shows on that.
And on our way back, we stopped in London, and we had a few days, and with the schedule we had a few days, and so whenever we're there on a weekend, we always go to the Portobello Street Market. It's a fantastic flea market, and it's just unbelievable in London. And so we go, and we're looking at the antiques and the stuff, and we find a little old lady in her late 70s, early 80s that's has this little bitty shop. All she sells is bread plates, which the British call them bread plates. They're like cutting boards, but real ornate, and the matching knives. And that's all she has. She's got like 50 of these sets. And my wife is fascinated by them, and most everybody else is selling hundreds of things. She's selling bread plates. And while my wife, Kathleen, was looking at them, I started a conversation with this lady, because I can't help it. And so I said, so why bread plates? And she said, well, 35, 40 years ago when I started, I noticed everybody sold everything. There was a lot of different stuff. And I thought, how am I going to get noticed here? She said, I love bread plates. And so I thought, maybe if that's all I concentrate on, I'll stand out. And so for 40 years, she's actually been known as the bread plate lady at the Portobello Street Market. And everybody knows her, and she's the best in the world at what she does in her collection. And so she's gained a international now reputation because she's really, really good
OBT.
at one big thing. That's exactly right. OBT. That's right.
But I mean, you picked up on that. See, that was a moment that 1,000 people would walk past and never get it.
Never think about it. Well, yeah, but that's what I do.
How can you take that example into helping a guy do television, Christian television? It's just
I can take it into a lot of different ways. Television is a great example. You know, the truth is, if you're a pastor, ministry leader, writer, filmmaker, whatever it is you do, you can. You know, the truth is, we live in a niche world. When you and I were little, there was what, 4 major national magazines, Life, Look, you know, 4 major national magazines. Today, I bought an antique Mustang, an old 67 Mustang years ago, convertible, and I sold it, of course, to put my daughters through college, so I can't decide if I'm a great dad or an idiot. I can't decide.
Just think what it's worth now.
Yeah. But when I had that Mustang, I discovered there are 17 different magazines just for antique Mustang owners. There are thousands of niche magazines out there. It's about the niche today. And marketers know that if you want to get noticed, if you want to get popular, if you want to get on the radar, you can't be talking about everything anymore. You have to be really, really good at one big thing. And my big example is Jack Hayford, who's been my pastor in LA my family's pastor for 20-some years. Jack is an incredible guy, and I've heard him preach thousands of sermons. But if you cut Jack, he will bleed worship. He's written 100 worship songs. He's written 5 or 6 books on worship.
There's no glitch.
He's no.
I mean, you know what's missing on his stage? Is the gold chairs and the gold curtains.
Don't get me started.
In fact, he brings this up in the book.
Man.
I mean, I mean, there's nothing there. It's just he's teaching.
That's right. You know what? And pastors have to teach on a lot of things, no question. But the one big thing idea is like a filter that you teach everything through. For instance, what is that one thing that you think about when you wake up in the morning? It's the last thing you think about when you go to bed at night.
Boy, that's good.
You're passionate about it. You live for it. The truth is, everything in your life, if you look through that filter, suddenly people start to notice, and you become an expert at that subject. And that's when the news media wants to talk to you. It's when people want to come and listen to you. It's when they want to buy your books. It makes a huge difference.
You talk about a DISC profile.
Right.
Can that be taught?
A DISC profile is a you can find it on the web if you Google it. DISC. It's like Myers-Briggs. They're personality tests. And
does that work?
I think so, and I'll tell you why. It's not mystical. It's not weird. Yeah. Personality tests reveal a lot about how you're wired. And you know what? I'm just wired to be a little on the ADD side. Yeah. I have I'm the king of the short attention span. My secretary, when people come into my office, my assistant will whisper in their ear, when Phil's eyes glaze over, the interview is done. Yeah. And
he was doing that in the green room.
Oh boy! So I fought that for years.
Yeah.
I felt guilty about it, and I struggled with it. But when I took a DISC profile, and I realized this is just the way God made me. I'm wired. I'm just kind of scattered, and I embraced that, and it changed everything for me. And I suddenly started writing about it, I started speaking about it, and it changed everything. So personality profiles, I think, are great ways to figure out, you know, all of us are wired in different ways. Some are focused people, some are scattered, some like numbers and detail, others are very creative. Once we figure that out, we stop fighting it and we let God just use us in a very powerful way.
You got a PhD in theology, so at one point in time you must have thought you was going to be a pastor or
that's
something.
Tough to get.
Oddly enough, no. You know what? I thought, the reason I got my PhD in theology is because I love going to class. I love it. And I'm crazy in that way.
He is whacked.
I know. I love learning. Well, you know what? Let me say this. Going back to the time we met at that workshop at the National Religious Broadcasters, I normally teach to 20, 30-something guys, you know, that age group. And I'm sitting there looking out, and you and Sharron are on the front row, and you're madly making notes. And I knew who you are by reputation. I knew you'd been involved in Christian TV for a long time. You were, you know, been really instrumental in the development of Christian television. And I thought, why in the world is he here listening to me? And afterwards you came up and we started talking, and I was so blown away by the fact that even after all these years of Christian TV and all your experience, you still want to learn more. You still want to grow. And that blew me away. And I hope on my deathbed I have a stack of books on the night table, because there's always a place where we can grow and learn. And that just had a huge impact on me. And I've written about you and talked about you because I think it's so important that people have that kind of attitude that never stop learning.
Well, when certain individuals start talking, it's and I know you've been there.
Yeah.
You're sitting in an audience or whatever, and you're going, okay, I came here, I didn't know why I'm here. And soon as the person starts talking, you go, okay, I get it. Now I know why I'm here.
Yeah, well, in contrast to people who, I always say, it's important that you stop talking before the audience stops listening. So
you know that one big thing is when you, like you say, think about it all the time.
Yeah,
and it's
it
the
is.
one thing that brings you joy when you think about it.
So true. And I'll tell you this, Sharron, when you figure it out, you move from a job to a dream. You stop going into work every day. You stop laboring because suddenly it's a passion. You're excited about it. It gives you a reason to live.
But it's hard to get there, isn't it? Say you're in a job, but this is the dream you have. I mean, it's hard to get there sometimes.
In the book, I talk about, be strategic, don't be stupid. When, if too many people figure out their one big thing, they'll read a book like mine, and they'll figure out, okay, I know what God's really called me to do, and they'll go into their boss and say, I'm quitting. I've discovered my one big thing. And that's that's just simply stupid. The truth is, I wrote my first 2 books coming in at 6 a.m. in the morning during my regular job so I could have 2 uninterrupted hours to write every morning. So I wrote 2 books before I ever left my job. And so I think there's a way to transition. And I have a section in the book I talk about how to transition from the job you have today to the passion that you feel like God's calling you to. Because getting from where you are to where you want to be, you have to be smart.
Yeah. You have a chapter on It's Never Too Late. I love that one, especially at my age.
One of these days we'll figure it out.
You have a chapter on It's Not About You.
Yes, yeah. It's not about, a lot of people say, all this talk about finding your one big thing, what an egotistical thing. Yeah. No, it's not, because we're talking about you getting plugged into God's plan for your life. What could be more important than that?
Okay, Phil's in a motel room.
Yes.
You're looking for Christian programming. That's what I do. If I'm in another state,
absolutely,
I start browsing. Okay, who's here? With your background, you must tune into some of them and go, what in the world is this guy doing?
Well, now don't be too harsh.
I mean, you've got to sit down on the bed and go, oh, honey, I'll be right there. I got to see this.
I joke sometimes that I'd like to start a museum of bad Christian television, but I can't find a building big enough. But here, before we get too ugly here, you know what? I'm temperate with the fact that these are very sincere people who genuinely are trying to make an impact. The problem is they don't realize the power of perception. And how you're perceived is just as important as what your message is. So and I tell pastors all the time, there are people that aren't listening to your message because of that ugly carpet you have in the church and all those plants you have on stage, or people can't get past that. That perception is so important, and if you can work to help change their perception so they're open to your message, what a wonderful thing that is. And it's not about watering down your message or compromising, it's just helping the audience really understand what your message is all about. And that works not just in the pulpit, but it works in business. Helping your boss understand who you are and what you're about. Helping your friends understand. So perception matters.
I've got a concept for a woman, and she's going to be a Bible teacher, and she's going to just walk back and forth on the platform and just talk about things that have happened in her life.
Right.
And then kind of bring it up. And I can see just a packed audience just watching this woman walk back and forth on that platform and telling different stories relating to many of the people in the audience.
Sounds like you're talking about Joyce Meyer.
Yeah, that's it. Now, you've helped her, too.
I have. Worked with Joyce. I love Joyce. She's fantastic. Joyce can tell a life-changing story based on how God told her to take her shopping cart back up to the rack in the parking lot. She sees things.
She can sell that story.
Unbelievable. And the thing about Joyce is what you see on television is what you see in real life. I've been out to eat with her. I've been to her home, and she's the exact same person. And so Joyce is absolutely real, and I love that about her. I just absolutely love that about her.
And you got a chapter on Don't Burn Your Bridges. Where,
oh, boy.
I mean, boy, let me tell you something.
Yeah, that's
if
good.
You just get the book for that chapter, it will save you grief you won't believe.
Well, you know, the people you meet on the way up are the same people you will meet on the way down. And I've always thought that, I learned, I worked for Oral Roberts years ago when he was at his peak in particularly during the late 70s and 80s.
When he was bringing in billions.
Oh, well, he was doing primetime television, and
yeah.
Oral, and I loved Oral, and he was a great man. But I learned early on that when I was young, I couldn't always get to Oral, but I could get to Ruth Rooks, his secretary. And I became Ruth's best friend. I sent her flowers on her birthday. I just stopped by her office to see how she was doing from time to time. Well, let me tell you, suddenly, Ruth would open doors for me. I found out the assistant can often open doors the president can't open.
That's right.
And so Ruth was remarkable. And so I learned early on the value of treating everybody well, because you never know. The security guard, the reception. I've been to so many meetings where Christian leaders came in and they were arrogant with the receptionist or just rude to the security guy. Let me tell you, they can open doors for you in situations. And so I think never burning bridges is, I've made mistakes in the area like everybody. You know, we've always...
That's how you learn.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And I regret, some of my greatest regrets are friendships or relationships that I burned that bridge and I shouldn't have. And I've learned since what a terrible thing it is. And so I do everything I can now to make sure that every relationship ends gracefully. And you know what? There are times to end relationships.
Yes.
Sometimes relationships are holding you back, they're not helping you, they're frustrating you, and it's okay to end those relationships, but you can do it in a gracious way.
Somebody needs a relationship with Christ. That's your camera right there. About a minute left.
Let me tell you, that is the ultimate relationship. You know, as you well know, that's the ultimate relationship. And I think if, you know, no matter where you are, no matter whatever your circumstance may be, whatever situation you're in financially, there's no question that opening up your heart to the God of the universe will change everything for you. And, you know, can we just pray to do that? I mean, I just think we should. Father, I just pray that whoever's watching this program, whoever's struggling right now, whoever's has questions in their life, I pray that in Jesus' name that you would just open your life up to Christ, that you would say yes to God. You would ask Him to forgive you of the mistakes that you've made, the sins you've had in your past, and it would change everything for you. And if you can do that, I think your future will make a dramatic right turn.
You will always remember this day if you prayed with Phil Cooke, okay? Because you will see his name other places across the country. But it is important, not the person that led you to Christ, but the Christ that you receive, and He'll change your life. I accepted Christ, Phil.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, in a Christian college?
Fancy that.
Yeah, in a Christian college. I walked down the aisle. I was the only one. It was a Vesper service, they used to call it.
Yeah.
And I walked forward, and it was T.W. Wilson, Billy Graham's right-hand guy for all those years. And of course, you know, at my age, you know how many years ago that would be. But it changed my life. And if you trust Christ as your Savior, He will change your life. And when you're talking about one big thing, that can be your one big thing for this day. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Invited to tune in each week to The Good Life, hosted by CTN founder and president Bob and Jane DeAndre. This program features inspirational and informative interviews, anointed music, and special reports. Don't miss The Good Life, Friday nights at 9 p.m. and Monday mornings at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, here on the Christian Television Network.
Millions of people live in spiritual darkness without hope. The My Hope World Television Project is mobilizing millions of Christians to share the gospel in their homes using local language television broadcasts as a tool for personal evangelism. The My Hope Project has already helped more than 6 million people make a decision for Jesus Christ. For more information, please call 1-800-961-6796 or visit billygraham.org/TV.
Watch Life Today, weekdays as James and Betty Robison provide real answers to real problems through compelling guests and miraculous testimonies. Witness God's love through inspiration, hope, and life. Join us in making a real difference in our world by changing countless lives and building stronger families. Don't miss Life Today with James and Betty Robison, weekdays on this station.
Did you know that over 1 million Americans are dying annually of just heart disease and cancer alone? Do our doctors know the cause? Join us for the next 30 minutes